Yee! Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Tiffany and I'm the owner of Tiffany Gordon Cosplay LLC, which is a company that focuses on costume and prop fabrication as well as education. And if you're new to the channel, I would love to have you as part of our cosplay building community, so subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. And today I'm excited to bring you my latest creation, which actually was a commission for a friend in the Air Force, and it is for the Aldori Legacy Defender Shield from the game World of Warcraft. So let's begin on how I made it. But wait! I forgot one very important thing about this commission, as it was specifically to be for a wall display piece and not a functioning holding shield. So it was designed specifically for hanging on the wall, and because the person is active duty in the Air Force, I had to be able to make it so they can easily take it on and off of the wall so they can move to whichever station they are, so they can easily just hang it back on the wall at their new base. So, yee! And here are all of the tools and materials that I used for doing the base fabrication part of the shield. And I'll have links to all of this in the description, as well as I have a blueprint for the shield available on my website, TiffanyGordonCosplay.com, link in the description. To first start off, I traced the outer part of the shield onto 10mm foam 2 times, as well as the inner part of the shield 1 time, as well as doing this for each of the outer shield individual tile pieces, as well as the detail emblem in the center onto 10mm foam, and then grabbed my heat gun and heat treated the foam before cutting it out with a box cutter. Then to start to assemble, and for this we're going to be using contact cement glue to glue all the pieces together. And this is the process of applying your glue to both of the surfaces that you want to attach to each other. Let the glue fully dry and then we can start to assemble. Starting off with layering our 2 main parts of the shield on top of each other, and then the inner part of the shield. And I will note that I added some 10mm circles that I had laying around in the center. This way it would give the shield a little bit more of a dome-like shape in the very center to give more 3 dimension. As well as I did end up sanding with a sanding drum the edges. I just forgot to film that part. As well as finishing out the outer trim of the shield, the tile-like pieces, attaching it till it looked like this. And then for the detail pieces that were on the shield, and again I traced these onto 10mm foam, heat treated, and then cut out with an X-Acto knife. I then traced where the parts were going to sit on the shield, and then applied my contact cement glue to both the shield part and the back of these elements, waited for the glue to dry, and repeated by attaching all of the pieces together until it looked like this. And the last part for this section that we're going to talk about is the moon. And for this, I ended up making a 3-dimensional paper model, which I then laid out onto 4mm HD foam, traced, heat treated, and then cut out using an X-Acto knife. And again, I forgot to film, but I ended up sanding the center seam that was going to connect to each other at a 45. And then applied my contact cement glue and glued the 2 pieces together. This made it so that way when we attach the 2 pieces together, that we'll have a nice tip peak rather than a crack in the center and it would look wonky. And lastly, because both of these are cut, you're going to want to sand the bottom part of the edges, so that way they're going to be now flush. So basically the goal is to sand it flat, so when you put it on its proper angle onto a table, it'll be perfectly perpendicular and you won't have any space. And this will make it really easy to attach either to the shape of the moon or just straight to your shield piece. And that will complete the fabrication part of our base shield. Now to my favorite part, which is painting. And here are all of the tools and materials that I used for painting this shield. Reminder, you don't have to airbrush paint, you can always paint this by hand, and I'd recommend using the Liquitex acrylic paint to do that. Otherwise, we're gonna use my favorite brand of airbrush paint, which is Createx Colors, and my Iwata airbrush equipment. And I'll have links to all of this in the description. And the the first step that I do for any of my foam projects is to prime it. And for this, we're going to be using Plasti-Dip. And Plasti-Dip is a rubber spray paint, and this is going to help to basically make it so all of our foam is primed and also make a much nicer and cleaner surface for all of our paint to adhere to. And you'll want to do this 3 times in between each coat, letting it dry for at least 45 minutes onto the front and the back of this shield. And then for painting, and I was testing out a few new colors for this project, and I started off with Cretex Colors Autoborn Sealer Silver. And this did help for all of my paints that I painted after this color to help it be more shiny and more magical like. So I did this as a base coat. And then after that was dry, we're going to move on to our purple light colors. And our first color that we're going to be doing is going to be a mixture of Pearl Plum and Dioxine Purple. And we're going to be spraying this onto our trim outer tile section as well as to the base middle section. And once that's dry, you're going to want to mask off the middle section only. And we're next going to focus on the tile-like parts. And these are still a purple-like color, but they are slightly different. And for this, I did a mixture of our Pearl Plum, Dioxine Purple, as well as adding now Metallic Rose to the mix. And it gave it a more kind of reddish, goldish kind of tone, which was really pretty. And the final color that we're going to do for this part is actually going to be in all of the cracks and crevices. And for this, we're going to be using a mixture of Dioxine Purple as well as Jet Black. And this is just going to add those darker shades in between and really make this all pop. And once that's dry, you can then mask all of that trim off with our masking tape. And a helpful trick so that way your tape does not peel up the paint or leave any tape residue is get you a masking tape. Also, I use the Scotch brand masking tape. It's the best kind. And you're going to apply it to, yes, your leg. If you have leg hair, do it to a piece of pants so that way you don't pull any leg hair. And then you're going to remove that tape and apply it to the surface. This is going to make it so the tape will still be sticky enough to stick to your piece, but it won't be too sticky that it will rip off. And that's how I do this, and I've never had a problem yet. So cover all that up, and then we're going to move on to our next color, which is gonna be pretty simple because it's just one color, and it's gonna be Metallic Bronze. And we're gonna apply this to the rest of the pieces. And side note, you may need to do this in 2 coats, just so that way you have that nice rich color. And once that's done, you can then remove all of your masking tape, and it should be magical. But we will want to do a little bit more. And for me, I like any type of gaming or anime. I like to add a little dark line around pieces because then it just makes it visually pop a lot more. And for this, I do it by hand, still using our airbrush paint, and this color is going to be Jet Black. But instead of an airbrush gun, I like to do this by hand with a paintbrush, and I just went around all of the edges, and this just helped it pop that much more. And the final step for painting any piece, and it's very important, is to seal your piece. And for this, I like to use Cretex Colors UVLS, and we're going to be using their satin one. And here's what it should look like in the end. And the sealer will then protect everything from the sun, and your paint won't chip off and it won't fade and change colors. And it makes all of your paints, if you are using different types, have one even consistent shine. Now moving right along to the gems, as well as how I made this piece hang. And here are all of the tools and materials that I used for making these gems. And I will say that the 3D file for the gems I do not have available, but if there is enough interest, then maybe I'll add it to my site. So let me know in the comments if you would like these gems or hanging devices. Otherwise, they're just gonna be in my imagination space on my computer. So yeah, and for these gems, I 3D modeled them in a CAD program called Rhino 6, and each of these 4 gems actually are different. So they're kind of similar, but they're each individually specific for which side of the shield it was placed, as well as I had to design the backs for them and for hanging them, as well as for the center gem that sits on the shield. I had to make spots for our clear acrylic rods to sit into. And I ended up printing them on my Prusa printer, and I did it in PLA filament. And after they were printed, I removed all the support and I sanded a lot. And then I actually used some Rust-Oleum sandable primer and kept sanding till all of our edges were very nice and clean, and you no longer saw those stair steps from the printer. I just didn't film all of that. But once that whole process was done, it was on to painting, my favorite part again. And we're gonna end up using, again, airbrush paint. And our first color that we're gonna be doing is going to be a mixture of pearl white and metallic rose, as well as to give these gems a more glowing like effect like they do in the game. I ended up going just on the bottom section to give a kind of halo-like look. I went back with just metallic rose, and this made it glow. Now I will say that yes, I could have made these gems glow. I could have used lights on the inside and made them all like transparent and very cool and all, but the person that commissioned it did not want that, so that's why we went this route. And the final step for any of our painting, like I said before, is to seal it. And for each of these gems, we're going to be sealing it with Kratex Colors UVLS Clear, but this time we're going to be using their gloss, so that way it gives it an even more magical shine that's shinier than satin. Then once all of that paint is dry, it is time to attach all of the gems, or at least the center one. And for the very center one, I ended up having 2 holes that I'd already 3D modeled into the gem for the centerpiece. And for this, I ended up cutting 2 pieces of clear acrylic rod and applied my 2-part epoxy, attached it to the gem, and let it dry. Then for attaching it to the shield, I ended up using Costools hole drills, their smallest size. I first placed where the gem was I wanted it to sit, and I kind of pushed in so that way the clear rods would leave an indentation in the foam, and this would give me a clear mark of where I would use this tool to cut out those 2 circles. And for this attachment, I ended up just using some super glue that I put inside the holes and then inserted the clear acrylic rods to finish this gem placement. And the final piece that I'm going to be attaching to the shield is actually a piece that nobody will see, and it is on the back part. And I ended up 3D modeling these kind of wall hooks that you could either hold with wire or screws, and I had already pre-cut out these rectangular pieces. I had already cut it out before I had glued everything together, so this way I could easily, just when the whole piece was painted, add some super glue and insert these 3D printed pieces to finish out the shield. And now we can install it onto the wall like so. The person who commissioned this shield wanted this to actually be a wall display piece and to have no functional properties except for being decoration of awesomeness. So I wanted this to be where, because they are in the Air Force, they do move a lot, and I wanted to make sure that they could easily install this at any location that they are stationed. And for this, I kind of did a few tricks. The first thing is each of the gems I wanted to have that floating look and not have like a rod sticking out attached to the shield. So for this, I wanted the gems to mount to the wall, but I wanted it to be easily taken on and off so you can install this anywhere. So for this, I actually have it where it's 2 pieces. And this piece has 2 holes, so that way you can put a screw through each of them, as well as the back piece of the gem has a hole cut out for this, and it just slides on top. actual shield piece, it just has 2 screws, and then on the back, I 3D modeled these little pieces that are inserted into the foam, and it has a little notch, so potentially you can align it on that and just easily hang it with the screws, or if you wanted, you could put even a wire or whatever. And then you can just slide it on, just like that. So it's very easy to just assemble anywhere, and you can move with it. And that, guys, is how I made this World of Warcraft shield. And I hope you found this video helpful for making your own version or another wall display shield of some sort or whatever. I don't know. But if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate a like, as well as don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you as part of our cosplay building community. A big thank you to, of course, the person who commissioned this piece. A big thank you to all of my company sponsors, as well as all of my members here on YouTube, specifically those legendary members who financially help to support me so I can continue doing this as my full-time job and bring you more cosplay tutorials. And I'll see you for our next one. Much love, guys.